Welcome. For so many Muslim parents, there's this one question that just keeps coming up. It's a challenge that really gets to the heart of what it means to raise a family in faith. A question all about balance and love and guidance.
And this is it. This is the big one. How do you get your kids to pray not because you're forcing them, but because they actually want to? How do you nurture that love for prayer so it comes from within, instead of just being, a chore or something they do out of fear? It's a tricky path for sure, but there's a roadmap.
So in this explainer, we're going to break it all down into 5 key parts. First, we'll talk about nurturing faith without force. Then, we'll get into the step-by-step journey of prayer. After that, we'll tackle that tricky balance between love and rules, deal with some very modern challenges, and finally, wrap it all up by looking at your family as your most important project.
All right, let's start right at the beginning, at the foundation. Because before we can even talk about the act of praying, we have to talk about the feeling that makes you want to pray in the first place. The big idea here is connection before correction. A genuine connection with Allah has to come first.
There's this beautiful concept called fitra, and it's the idea that every child is born with this natural built-in pull towards God. So your job as a parent isn't to just hand them a list of rules and beliefs, it's to gently nurture that connection they already have to help it grow.
So how do you actually do that? Well, get them outside. Let them just be amazed by the world, the trees, the sky, the little bugs on the ground, and gently remind them of the Creator behind it all. Tell them the stories of the prophets. Those stories hit way harder for a young kid than any lecture. And this one is huge. In those early years, try to limit screen time. Let them fall in love with the real world first, because that's where the signs of God are everywhere.
Okay, so once you've built that foundation of love, how do you start introducing prayer, or salah? A key thing to remember in our faith is that growth isn't supposed to happen overnight. It's a slow, patient journey.
So the path to prayer really happens in stages. In those early years, you're just focused on building that loving connection we talked about. Then, around age 7, you can start casually inviting them to pray with you. No pressure, just an invitation. By age 10, as the Prophet guided, it's time to get a bit more serious, which might include some discipline if they're not praying. The goal is that by the time they hit puberty, prayer is just a normal, established habit, not some brand new rule that came out of nowhere.
And this is so important. We have to reframe what prayer even is. It's not a chore. It's not just a ritual. The Quran tells us that prayer is what protects you from evil and wrongdoing. So when you teach your child to pray, you're not just telling them to do something. You're handing them a shield, a spiritual safeguard. And seeing it that way, that changes everything. It's not about control. It's about protection.
That idea of protection leads us perfectly into our next big topic, that very delicate dance between love and rules. Because raising a devout child isn't just about encouragement, it's also about setting clear, healthy boundaries.
I think a lot of parents wrestle with this, right? You want to be a source of joy for your kids, not a constant no. But is a life with no rules really an act of love? Or are we kind of leaving them unprepared for the real world? I mean, look at the difference here. A child who never, ever hears the word no can really struggle to set healthy boundaries later in life. But a child who's raised with that mix of love and rules, they learn that boundaries are actually a form of care, that structure actually makes them feel safe and loved.
Here's a great way to think about it. Rules are like a seatbelt. You don't ask your toddler if they feel like wearing a seatbelt, do you? No. You buckle them in because it's for their protection. It's not about fun, it's about safety. And in the same way, a lot of the rules in our faith and in our homes are like spiritual seatbelts, just keeping our kids safe from harm.
Okay, so we have these principles, but how do we actually apply them to the world our kids are living in right now? How do we help them build a strong, confident Muslim identity when there are so many other messages coming at them?
Let's take hijab, for example. The same rule applies: connection before correction. The mother's own positive attitude towards it is everything. Explain the why behind it, that it's about protection because she is so precious. Help her find good friends who also wear it. And let her just play with it when she's little, Make it fun, so it becomes a natural part of her, not some heavy rule that suddenly gets dropped on her.
And then there's the giant in the room, social media. The advice here is pretty straightforward. Delay giving them a phone for as long as you possibly can. And when they do get one, you have to be intentional about filling their lives with real-world stuff. Plan trips, go on adventures, prioritize actual face-to-face time. The more they love the real world, the less of a hold the virtual world will have on them.
As they get older, your role starts to shift a little.
It becomes less about directing them and more about helping them find their own purpose. So instead of telling them what to do, start asking them really good questions. Questions that make them think. What are you passionate about? What are you good at? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? These conversations, they are the absolute building blocks of a life lived with purpose and faith.
So all of these pieces, the love, the prayer, the rules, the identity, they all come together right here in our last section. The big idea is to stop seeing parenting as a million little separate tasks and start seeing it as one single, beautiful, unified project.
So what are the keys to this project? It really boils down to 3 things. Number 1, consistent dua. You can't do it all on your own, so you have to be constantly asking Allah for help. Number 2, curate their friendships. Their friends will have a massive influence, so be involved. And number 3, create a family vision.
You know, we make that famous dua for our children to be the coolness of our eyes. But what does that really mean? It's so much deeper than just wanting them to be successful or well-behaved. The scholars explain it as that deep, soul-level happiness you feel as a parent when you see your child worshiping Allah, not because they have to, but with a happy and willing heart. That's the ultimate goal.
And that brings us to the final call to action. Don't just let parenting happen to you. Treat it like your finest, most important project. I mean, literally, sit down as a couple and write a mission statement for your family. What do you guys stand for? What's your vision? Getting on the same page like that is probably the most powerful thing you can do.
So I'll leave you with that to think about. If you had to write it down right now, what would your family's mission statement be? Because just thinking about that, well, that might be the very first step to building that amazing generation you're hoping for.